Well, here we go, everybody. Welcome back to the Bass Commissioners. Just a couple of regular Joes who feel it's time for unification in the sport. And we want to see the sport of professional bass fishing become the very best it can possibly be. We tackle the hard issues in the sport, and when necessary, we produce binding rulings, which the tournament organizations, let's face it, they're just going to ignore what we do anyway. But we want to make sure we get this on the record. We want to make sure that the world hears what the Bass Commissioners have to say, because we're right. In this episode, oh boy, I'm afraid we might ruffle some feathers. So it's early in the season, but we have already had our first BASS Elite Series conflict with a Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour event. Today, the Bass Commissioners are going to critique side by side the performance of the two organizations. We're going to tell you what was good and what was not so good about the broadcast that both organizations put on. I don't know if you are like myself, but I sat and watched both events, one on one monitor, one on the other monitor, as they both unfolded throughout the week. We're going to tell you which organization came out looking the best, and certainly one did. We've got a few other things to get off our chest as well. Do you have a comment? Do you have a question? Is there something in the world of bass fishing that the commissioners need to address? Shoot us a comment or DM us on Instagram at Bass 2 Anglers Podcast, and we'll start investigating. I am your co-host, Keith Nicewonger, and we are joined, as always, by Patrick Schaefer. Good evening, Patrick.
Good. How about you?
I'm doing well. There's a lot of stuff going on in the bass fishing world.
Yeah.
Should I get the ball rolling tonight?
Yeah, go for it.
Pokey 1805, welcome to the Bass Commissioners. All right, so this week, we've talked about this so many times. How frustrating it gets for us when there is a BASS Elite Series event on top of a Bass Pro Tour event. And I know what you're saying. Shut up, you guys. What do you, we're fans of the sport. We want the pros to be able to do as many events as possible. I'm thinking of the Keith Pochets out there. There aren't that many of them, but there might be if they could do it. And so right off the bat, we have these two events stacked on top of each other. And I got to tell you, I watched as much of both as I could possibly watch. And I think that one side really hurt themselves this week. Did you get a chance to watch much of that, Patrick?
Not as much as I wanted to. I kind of checked in when I could. I was at work for a couple days of it, and for pretty much all of it. But and I had meetings and stuff going on, so I'd kind of check in and check out. Unfortunately, I missed, Andy making it in there at the end of that was a championship round, right?
No, that was actually the knockout round.
Knockout round. Sorry, knockout round. Not
yeah.
Knockout. You're right. So I missed that one, but I did get to catch the end of the championship round and Chris Lane, and I'd actually got on there, and I was actually studying, and I set an alarm on my phone so that I could go watch the last about 5 minutes of that tournament, because just to see what was going to happen. And I thought Mark Davis was going to win it. It was kind of cool to see one of the older guys that's been around for a while get him his first win in the Bass Pro Tour. So I turned it on to watch that, and I was skeptical of switching to the new format and how much drama it was going to create and excitement on the cut line and all that kind of stuff. And when I turned that thing on there and he caught that fish with less than a minute left, Chris Lane's fighting that fish, and he lands it. And you were watching it too, and he lands that fish, and he had no idea that he had won. like he was like, oh man, I came so close, I couldn't, and the announcers were like, oh man, he's fixing to find out in a minute. And the fact that he caught the fish, and they were like, is it going to be 4? Is it going to be 5? Is it going to be big enough? And then he's, they say it's 5 pounds, and I mean that was awesome. I mean that any worries that I had on how exciting and dramatic all this stuff was going to be went out the window. And what that proved to me was that the drama was because it was live scoring and live action. You knew everything what was going to happen versus in bass, I got to wait for a weigh-in. So in that sense, I would have set an alarm to watch the last 5 minutes of the weigh-in because, no offense, I thought Scott Martin was leading on day one compared to what Bass Track said. And Bernie Schultz was like 7 pounds behind him, and then all of a sudden weighs his bag in and sandbagging, whatever you want to call it. He comes in like he ends up first place for day one. And I'm like, so I can't look at Bass Track and have an idea what happened. But there was just more excitement for me on the MLF side of things. I can't.
Yeah, I watched a lot of both broadcasts this week. The Major League Fishing event, of course, I think started on Monday. Maybe it was Sunday. I think it was Monday. And so you had that drama, and you're right. It doesn't matter what format. Every fish counts, or 5-fish limit. It doesn't matter the format. It's the doggone score tracker, the live update score tracker that makes the difference. It was unbelievable. So you have 2 groups that fish. You have Group A and Group B. On the second day of Group A and second day of Group B, as the time is ticking down, there are guys that are just ounces outside the cut. So you have big time drama for the Group A day 2. And then you have big time drama for the Group B day 2. And it's not at the top, it's at the cut line, which I think I just think it's brilliant that they've figured this out, that the cut lines in the middle of the week is what is going to have us riveted. And then
I mean, day 2, Group A, I was watching because Josh Bertrand was just right outside. And all he needed was like a 2-3 pound fish, and I was waiting for it. And I was waiting, hoping he was going to catch it, hoping he was going to make it. Obviously, he didn't, but still, I mean, it was still there. As much as I didn't, honestly, I didn't think it would be. I'm not going to lie, I was wrong. I mean, I wasn't every fish format's cool. I wasn't mad that they went to 5 fish and kind of whatever they wanted to do, in my opinion. I mean, it's their league. But when they kept talking about, the drama's still going to be there, this is going to be there, I didn't believe them. I didn't think it was going to be there. Like they were saying it was going to be. And I was 100% wrong.
Okay, well, so now the knockout round was to me the championship day was spectacular, but the knockout round was spectacular. So here you go. You got this 5-fish format. Instead of just going out and catching fish after fish after fish, Mark Davis goes out and he focuses on catching big ones. And he catches a 34-pound limit. Just massive. I don't know that he would have been doing, if he would have had to do that, or if he would have done that if he had been fishing for every fish counts. I think you're out there, you're looking for the bucks, anything that are going to bite. The little small spawning males that are up, and that may not happen. So that was spectacular. And then, I mean, Andy Morgan caught his fish that took him from out of the cut into the championship day on the last cast. The time expired while they were weighing his fish. It was very exciting. Okay, so now we fast forward to the championship day, and again, this is all like you say, it's the score tracker that does this. So with about 30 minutes to go, Chris Lane is very close, but he's got big fish in his life well. He's got, I think, like a 3-6 that he has to get rid of. And they're figuring that he needs to get like a 4-12 or something like that. And you're going, man, what are the chances he's going to catch a 4-12 in the last 20 minutes? And what did that big fish weigh? I completely spaced on that. The last fish he caught.
It was like 5.
Yeah.
It was 5 pounds something, 5'7", 5'5", it was something like that. And what made it for me was the fact that, like, he didn't even know. I mean, because I was expecting him to get excited, and then, like, you had the anticipation. You're anticipating what the weight's going to be because you're like, oh, man, is that 4? Is that 5? Is it going to be enough? Is it not going to be enough? And then they weigh it, and they're like 5 pounds. Like, oh, man, it's enough. And then you're waiting for him to get excited, and then he does that. You see him scrambling to go out there and try to make another cast. He's like, man, what are you doing? Like, you got it. And he's like, oh, man. And, like I said, I already kind of said this, but the time expired. He's like, man, I tried so hard. I fought so hard. And it's like, oh, man, he's fixing it. The announcers were saying it, but I was thinking it, too. It's like, man, he's fixing to get some great news right here. And he has no idea. And I can't wait to see if somebody on one of those boats out there was going to yell at him that he just won it. And it didn't sound like they were saying anything. And so it was exciting. And
yeah.
I can't argue that. And I think, again, nothing against Bass. I'm not trash talking Bass by any means. But for me, the excitement was MLF.
Okay, well, I don't want to trash talk Bass either, but here's the risk that the organizations run by not getting together and saying, we're going to do it on this weekend, you do it on this weekend. I sit in front of a doggone computer that has 2 monitors, and I got both of them up, and I'm watching them both. I'm a junkie. If there were 3 events going on, I'd have to scramble to get something else. But I'm watching them, and I'm going, wow, one of these is almost unwatchable. Okay, we'll talk about the camera angles. I can't believe I'm critiquing the camera angles on this. But the BASS camera, especially when these guys are throwing frogs and the spit, like the devil's horse type baits that they're throwing, they got the camera completely zoomed in on the bait. They're going for the glory shot. I know what they're doing. They're going for the glory shot. Whereas the Major League Fishing broadcast has got the camera panned back. You can see the lure way off in the distance, but you can see everything else that's going on, and you can see the cover that they're fishing. I could hardly watch the close-up of the top. I know I'm splitting hairs on this. But again, you put both organizations up on the same day, I really think you're asking to get compared. And here's a couple of guys sitting on a live broadcast right now who watch these events talking about what they saw. I thought the camera angles at Major League Fishing were much better. I also thought the commentary was far better with Major League Fishing. I was watching guys on Bass Live today, and they were talking, and they kept going back and forth about, how would these guys approach this? And I'm going, God, they don't know what other people are catching, and it was, I don't know. I just felt it was so much more compelling than the Major League Fishing broadcast. I will say this, and this is for you, Randy. Tyler Riffett today catching his fish on live electronics at Lake Okeechobee. I loved watching that. That was awesome.
That's awesome.
Poor Randy. He's gonna. I can hardly wait to see what he's got to post something on this.
I'm sure.
You talk about the venues or the events where live electronics will not be a factor. OMG.
Right. But Bass is going to have to do something. And you have potential here. For one, it goes back to what we've already made the ruling on, which is they need to get the scheduling thing figured out. Don't make me choose. Don't make me pick which one to watch, because I'm going to watch the one that's got a little more excitement going on.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm not saying who's got better anglers or this or that, I'm not even getting into any of that. I'm just saying from an entertainment standpoint, you're trying to grab my attention. for me, like I told you, I'm going to college right now online, and I'm working on getting a degree, so I'm having to study. So it was enough to make me set an alarm to go watch it because I knew it was going to be exciting, and I wanted to see Mark Davis. And then when you told me what happened with Andy, I was mad that I missed that, and so which I'll probably go back and watch the archive footage and at least get to watch it again. But
they did not put that in their daily thing. They had like a 3-minute summary, and I was surprised they didn't have Chris Lane's on the championship day, and they didn't have Andy Morgan's on the knockout round. Maybe they will update and put another one up, but I wanted to see that. I wanted to actually drop that clip into this video tonight because I thought it would fit in pretty nicely.
Yeah, but I just don't. I mean, you got to do something if you're Bass. I mean, you got to figure out a way to because again, I don't. These guys can go out and catch fish, and I still watch it. But from an entertainment side of things, if I've got to choose between the two right now, I'm leaning MLF because there's excitement, there's drama. I mean, yeah, maybe not so much on day one, but day two on both groups. So, I mean, if they're fishing 6 days, 4 out of the 6 have drama.
Yeah,
and I get it day one for both groups.
They're absolutely you're right. You're looking at a 6-day event that has at least 4 days of must watch. I mean,
right.
You need to. If you're a fan, you have to watch it.
And so, and I'm not saying Bass needs to switch to that format necessarily, but if you had live scoring, then you could. I mean, you could make drama around. You have cut lines. You have, hey, after this, the top 40 go. After this, the top 10 go. I mean, you could make some drama with that if people actually knew what was going on. And I think you're going to have to do something, in my opinion. And I know there's going to be diehard Bass people out there that are going to say, no, this is all we need to do right here. This is just the way we need to keep it. The heck with technology and all this other stuff. They're going to scream the heck with technology while they sit there on their iPhone and watch Bass Live all day at work.
But that's another thing. You're exactly right. You would have thought that Scott Martin was leading on day one if you looked at Bass Track, and and so the problem is that with a live weigh-in, it's archaic, and with that live weigh-in, I gotta watch 100 anglers walk across the stage on a live weigh-in. I don't have time to do that. Who has time to do that? I mean,
right.
Come on, I can watch the progress as the event goes on, but do I have time to sit and watch a live weigh-in to get the results? No, I don't.
Right. And again, like I've said before, the most exciting day is the last day. I mean, that's the day that matters.
Yeah.
I mean, in other sports, it's a little bit different because there's records and there's everything else. I mean, so in baseball, they may have a 3-game series or a 4-game series or, and you get in the playoffs and it's best of 5, best of 7 or whatever. But, I mean, if they win that, you still go to the game and you hope they win. Because if they win that game, that helps their record. Their record helps them throughout the season. So, but if you go into day 1 in 10th, okay, cool. Well, day 2, maybe you're in 5th. And then day 3, you're in 3rd. And then day 4, you win. So all that stuff in between there doesn't really matter. And I'll watch it from a standpoint of I like fishing. So I'll sit there and sometimes I'll turn the weigh-in on and I'll listen to the weigh-in kind of playing in the background or whatever, but I don't sit there and just stare at it the whole time. Now, day 4, the Bassmasters Classic, today I turned the weigh-in on just in time to figure out if Steve Kennedy was going to win. I like Steve Kennedy.
Yeah.
I was hoping he was going to pull out a win. I mean, congratulations to Tyler. I'm happy that he got him a win, but I like Steve Kennedy. And so I turned in to see that last 2 people weigh in.
Yeah.
So, again, you have an opportunity. If you're wanting to strum up more people to be excited, I think you've got to make a change. And I know there's people that are going to argue and cuss us and tell us we're crazy and everything else, but
well, we are crazy. We are crazy. There's no doubt about that. I mean, but I get your point. I get your point. Probably not something that the commissioners need to rule on, and we actually already have ruled on this. We ruled on a couple of these things. First of all, we have ruled that the way to run a bass tournament is to use the technology that's available and to keep live updates, official live updates. We've made that ruling. We've also made the ruling that says the organization should not schedule on top of each other. I know that's not going to happen this year, but those we've already had 2 rulings on this. So I think it's just kind of fun to kind of follow up and talk about what we saw this week. You got something else you want to talk about tonight? I'm sure you probably do.
Yeah. So obvious, and this we just saw this in the realm of getting on the same page with scheduling. They also need to give lakes a break. And I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the MLF just had their first tournament on Okeechobee, and then about a week later, Bass is out there having their event on Okeechobee.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I saw it on Lake Conroe here when after the Bassmasters Classic, after MLF came here, there's a spot where Jordan Lee spent most of his time fishing on Conroe during the MLF event. It's not a very big area. After that MLF event, every time you drove by there were no less than 5 boats in that little area fishing. So where I'm going with that is when you have an event, it's also going to drum up local fishing pressure. And if I'd have had a boat, I would have been right in there too. So I'm not judging anybody for going in there. I'm not mad at MLF for coming here or going to any lake. But I feel like we go to the same lake over and over again. Oh, we're going here. Oh, we're going here. We're back St. Lawrence. Back St. Lawrence. Okay, well, we're this town, that town. And I get the St. Lawrence River's a huge lake, or a huge river, or whatever you want to. But at some point in time, when we figure this out, all right, hey, you get first. Figure out this rotation and however you're going to have a lottery, who gets to draw first and draw what. And let's not go to Okeechobee back to back. Let's not go to Okeechobee every single year. There's Okeechobee, there's the Kissimmee chain, there's the St. Johns River,
Harris chain,
the Harris chain. You've got 4 different areas that in Florida that these people could go fish. So you could maybe use 3 and then lay off of them for a little bit, or let the big tours use 2 of them, and then I don't know. They just got to come up with something. I feel like we're beating some of these fisheries up, and I feel like we go to a lot of the same fisheries over and over again.
Well, so yeah, Florida has just taken a drubbing from the pro organizations. There was a Toyota Series event, I want to say, on the Harris chain. There was the BPT on the Kissimmee chain. There was an invitational, MLF invitational on Okeechobee, and a BASS Elite on Okeechobee. So yeah, those lakes got hit pretty hard. I know that the areas where these fisheries are depend heavily on these tournaments from an economic standpoint, and these areas are partially to blame for why the tours go there. Chamber of Commerce, and various, they make hotel rooms available. They make, lodging available. They make facilities available so that the organizations will come in and the money will come with them. And, I want the conservation to take place, but I know, for example, that St. Lawrence River, their Chamber of Commerce loves when the big events come up there, and I know that's that way on a lot of lakes. I really do think that the organizations are aware of this, but again, the organizations don't talk to each other. So Major League Fishing has an event on Okeechobee, and boom, a week later, the BASS Elite has an event on Lake Okeechobee. That's a pretty heavy pounding that fishery takes. But again, I know the areas around Clewiston and places like that, they depend heavily on these events for their for the dollars that these bring in. So I don't know. It's a matter of local control, I think. If the local chamber, I'm just using Chamber of Commerce as one thing here, but if the local commerce wants all these big events there to the detriment of their fishery, then it's kind of on them for putting up the facilities, making trying to attract the organizations there. So it's kind of on the local areas. I don't, these tournament organizations, they come where they're invited or where they're wanted, and
Right.
so you have that. But I do think, I mean, I don't know. This is kind of one of those local. Are you a fan of big government or are you a fan of local government? And
Right.
who gets to determine what happens? I think certainly conservation is a big thing. Um, and I know both organizations do a lot of conservation stuff. So that I think it kind of comes back to what the Rangers used to tell us when we go camping: leave it better than when you came in. And
Right.
if the organizations are doing it, if they're actually leaving it better than when they went in, I guess I don't have too much of a problem with it. But it's
No,
I don't
I
know that that always happens though.
right, and I know most anglers try to do a good job, and they try to do, like you said, leave it better than they found it, take care of the conservation. And I know Bass and MLF, they all do everything they can to protect these fish. But also, like on the other hand, like we're having a Bassmasters Classic. The 2018 Classic was the exact same place the 2023 Classic is going to be. And I feel like, so for me, I'm kind of like, oh, well, this is what we, I mean, Odd Defoe won. I mean, yeah, I'll probably kind of watch it, but I mean, it's like we get in this rotation where it's these same lakes that we're constantly going and having these classics at, and I just,
Well, that's the problem, though. You could say the same thing about the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl rotates between
yeah,
Arizona and Los Angeles, and it's where the money is. If
right,
if if uh, if these areas want the classic,
right,
South
yeah,
Carolina wants the classic, and they're making hotel rooms available to BASS for their staff. They're making food available to BASF for their staff, and they make all these different facilities available because it's going to bring in millions and millions of dollars to the local economy, and that's
oh yeah,
that's why it is.
for sure. And I mean, I understand all that. I just, for me, from a fan standpoint, I mean, the Super Bowl and baseball, and I mean, baseball is a little different, but the Super Bowl is a little different, because a football field's a football field. They all look about the same. Maybe the stadium's a little bit different. Same thing with baseball and everything else. But like on lakes, I mean, you could be fishing different styles. You could be fishing. You could have ledge fishing versus bed fishing versus offshore. I mean, there's all kinds of different options. I mean, you go obviously when they go up north to St. I mean, I know it's still probably pretty cold when we had the Bassmasters Classic, but if you push the Classic a little bit later, then maybe you could have a Classic up north on uh, you can have a smallmouth Bassmaster Classic and maybe go to some of these other lakes, and you have a smaller field, which is what allowed them to come to Lake Conroe.
Yeah.
But it gives you the opportunity to go to some of these smaller lakes, and I know it's all about the money, and unfortunately, that's why it probably never changes because, like you said, these cities make a lot of money, and they throw all this money out there, and all this revenue and everything else comes into. Same thing with Super Bowls and everything else. But just for me, from a fan standpoint, I like to see them go other places. So
Certainly. From I completely understand that, but I think that it is going to continue to be dominated by who is willing to bid. I think they bid on, the classic and other events like that coming to their area. We got time for one more thing. Have you seen what Dakota Bear has done in the first 4 weeks of the season?
He's been on fire. He's like,
Well, he's been on fire, yes, but he has fished four events in 4 weeks. And I know this because I've been trying to interview him, and he just doesn't have time. He fished the Sam Rayburn event, which he won, the Toyota
right,
Series event. Then he sprinted over and fished a Harris Chain Toyota Series event. Finished somewhere in the money or somewhere up there. Fished the Tackle Warehouse Invitational on Okeechobee, and then slid up there to the Kissimmee Chain and fished the BPT. That's four big events in 4 weeks. He's and by the way, he's made $100,000 in those four events.
yeah. That's why I'm saying he's on fire. I wish I'd made $100,000 in about 2 months.
Well, it's so funny because we had this kind of running joke on our podcast about a year ago. John Cox was fishing both the Bass Elite Series and the Major League Fishing BPT, and he would drive. I don't know how a guy could drive like he drove, fish partial tournaments here and there. And so if somebody that did something like this, we said, was John Coxing this event, he John Coxed it, turned it into a whatever that would be. But Dakota Ibarra is doing that. Now he's going to be at Clark's Hill for another Toyota Series event this coming week. And then I think he slides into Red Crest, which he's not a competitor in, but he is. Is he? This is his rookie year, right? At the BPT. Yes, this is his rookie year. But anyway, he is going to fish 5 events in the first 5 weeks. It's just amazing. This is what the Bass Two Anglers podcast Angler of the Year award was created to do. It was to recognize those anglers that fish all the time, as many as possible. In the good old days, we had about 20 guys, Ish Monroe, Mike Iaconelli, and guys like that fished both the BASS Pro Tour and the FLW Pro Tour. I thought that was the best. To me, those were the glory days of the sport when you had guys that would go head to head with on both levels. But can't do that anymore because the organizations intentionally make it impossible to do that. Keith Poche didn't make it to the BASS Elite event this week because he finished he had to fish in the knockout round of the BPT event, and it was nice of BASS to put his name last on the standings with no fish caught. I don't feel like they do that all the time. If an angler doesn't show up, I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've seen one on there before, and then I had to Google it, not like when they had like a medical deal or whatever. But
yeah, but did they actually put the guy's name in the lineup?
right,
On the
yeah,
scoreboard.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, I've seen it on there before where there'd be a guy with 0, and I was like, man, that's weird. And I would Google like what happened, and it would say he left for medical reasons.
Okay.
And then after that, the next tournaments they just wouldn't have him in there anymore. But still, what this all boils down to is again, like the rulings we made already, which is they got to fix this. They got to quit walking on top of each other. They got to quit pretending the other doesn't exist because it's not fair to the anglers. It's not fair to the fans. And it sucks for someone like Keith Poche who just wants to fish. That's what he wants to do. He loves fishing. So let him fish as much as he can.
Yeah.
And figure out how to let him do that.
Yeah, I mean, he's qualified to fish at the 2 most elite levels of the sport. He should be able to do it.
Right.
Well, all right. I think that's about it for tonight. We're just about done with our time slot here. I don't know. Do we didn't make any rulings this week. I don't think we have to make a ruling every week. We've ruled on a lot of things. We got a lot of I told you so's tonight. For the organizations about scheduling on top of each other. All right.
Well, it's kind of like you said earlier. It's good every now and then to bring up when we make rulings. we can talk about things that happen throughout the season that make it to why our rulings make perfect sense.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it just gives us more ammunition.
That's right. If you listen to us, we would tell you, right?
That's right.
All right, Patrick. Good night. Have a great week.
All right, you too. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Did we hurt your feelings? Well, that was bound to happen. We did warn you. The bass commissioners did warn the professional bass fishing organizations that they should not schedule on top of each other. This was bound to happen at some point. If the two organizations are going to schedule on top of each other, then goobers like myself and Patrick are going to make comparisons and we're going to give our opinions. It was bound to happen. Well, that's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to this channel. Drop us a comment. We want to hear from you. This is supposed to be a listener-viewer interactive series that we do. Until next time, keep both hands on the wheels. Keep those life vests zipped and clipped. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you again very soon.